This is part 8 of the Craftsman Emerson Gen 4 Rebuild series. If you haven't seen part 7, click the link at the top of the screen. In this video, we're going to finish cleaning the panels and then we're going to paint the drill press. Hello everyone, I'm Jeff and welcome to my shop. We got a lot to cover, so let's get to it. In part 7, we were able to remove that clear film on these side panels, and now we are just going to apply the Meguiar's cleaner wax to them and let them sit for about 15 minutes. And after 15 minutes, we'll come back and buff that off with a ShamWow. And these panels will clean up really nice. So there's some weird stuff going on around the edge, especially the bottom edge on both of these. Again, it looks like pitting, but I believe these are made out of aluminum, so they might be steel. I don't think so. They don't have a whole lot of weight to them. But in any case, we can get the majority of the panels cleaned up just fine. It's just that bottom edge is going to look kind of gnarly, but nothing we can really do about that. And you can see that cleaner wax really does a job on cleaning them up, removing any dirt or grime that's on them. So, and I have seen these for sale every once in a while on eBay for people that part out drill presses and stuff. So if you're missing yours, like I said in part 7, you can reach out to Matt Blast on Garage Journal, or maybe you can find a replacement set on eBay. So next, I'm going ahead and cleaning up that switch panel because I've decided that I didn't like how it looked after we tried to clean it up with the cleaner wax. So I'm sanding or using the wire wheel to remove the existing graphics that are on it. And then I'm just going to sand it a little bit more to get rid of some of those markings that the wire wheel will leave on aluminum. Then I'm going to clean it up with some acetone. Make sure we get all that aluminum dust off of it. And I've made this graphic with a silhouette. It's like a cricket. It's a vinyl cutter. So all the lettering is vinyl. And I'm just going to press it on there and then remove that transfer tape. So I guess this is a positive. I've done it where I've removed all the lettering and kept a big sheet of vinyl over it and then painted it on another drill press, and it didn't turn out as crisp on the lines as I wanted. So this, looks much better in my opinion. And then we'll just make sure all those letters are nice and pressed on there. And then we'll apply some clear coat over the top of that, and that'll seal that up and keep those letters from peeling off of there. And we'll let that dry. All right, so painting. So on the majority of the drill presses that I paint, I usually use rattle can stuff, but for these Gen 3s and Gen 4s and even the Gen 2s, I use this ALK 200. It's a performance coating from PPG. You can get it at like a PPG store near you. They sell automotive paints and stuff. And this is an industrial coating. It's completely impervious to solvents and stuff like that. It's got a really high abrasion ratio. So once it's applied, it'll be a great protector for this drill press. But the color I'm using is 3134 Case Gray. And you can take a picture or whatever of that, and that'll help you out if you want to go get some made up. I think I paid like $50 for this gallon, and I've used it on numerous drill presses. You obviously don't need a gallon. For this drill press, I basically use about as much as will fit inside that hopper that I've got on my gun. So here I'm just applying it, and obviously I've got a compressor connected to that gun that I'm shooting it with, and pushing it out at about 40 to 50 psi. And it really helps if you can hang up your parts to let them dry. That way you don't get any markings on any of the paint that you're painting. But these are a lot of the small parts for the drill press. That's the power panel. And these are the end shields for the motor. And I could have rattle canned this. I did have a really good color that I painted my Gen 4 standard 15.5 inch with. But that rattle can, back during COVID when there was so many supply chain issues, I couldn't find any of those rattle cans anywhere. It was an industrial paint from Krylon, and it was a really good match to the colors. A little bit more blue than gray, but it looked good. So I ended up having to go to PPG and have them do a color match with a part off of a drill press, and this was the closest color that they came up with, and it is a nice color. I like it. The other great thing about this paint is that you can have it in satin or semi-satin or flat or gloss or high gloss, whichever you want. I think this is a satin, but I don't remember. We'd have to go back and look at the Karen. But yeah, it's a great paint. It's lasted, at least 2 years on several of the drill presses. I sprayed my commercial Gen 4 with this stuff, and it turned out great. Real easy to work with. And then cleanup is with xylene, but it dries to the touch in about 15 to 30 minutes, and you can handle the parts in about an hour. And then full cure takes 30 hours to 4 days, depending on temperature and humidity. And if you're going to recoat, you have to recoat within 6 hours or after 30 hours. So some of these parts we're going to paint only half of them, and then we're going to have to wait the 30 hours to paint the other half of them. So that was the hub, and this is the motor mount. And this is the motor frame. . 'Cause, 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 'cause So you want this stuff to go on about 3 mil thickness. So this is the stator. And using that styrofoam under it was not the best idea. This paint does not work well with plastics, and depending on what it is, so if it's styrene, something like that, it will melt that stuff. Which is why I don't paint the belt covers when I paint with this stuff. I don't know. It would probably be okay on the belt cover because I think it's ABS, but I'm not going to take the chance of messing up a belt cover. But definitely styrene, it will melt that stuff in a heartbeat. All right, so here we are with the table. And since we have that big area masked off on the face of the table, the surface, and the boss around the column bore, we can actually flip this over and let that masked area rest on the board under it. And the area between the table surface and the bore is the area that we were really painting there. So we can flip this over and paint the other side without having to break it into 2 different paint sessions. So here we've got it flipped, and now we're just painting the underside. And just like when I was priming these parts, I like to get all of that bore area done first, and then I'll paint the rest of it. And that's because you'll probably end up getting a good amount of buildup around the lip of the bore because it's such a confined area. So you can scrape some of that off with a index card or something, and then come back and shoot a layer of paint over it, and you'll never even know. So now we can do the outside edge. You guys can probably hear my dog barking in the background. All right, so this is the base, and this is one of 2 parts that we're going to paint in 2 different paint sessions. So we're going to paint the bottom side of it first, and like I said, I'm getting that bore area first. And then we'll paint the rest of the bottom, all those different angles. And then we'll set that aside and let that cure for 30 hours. And then we're going to come back and paint the top side later. So if there's a downside to using this paint, it would be that the cleanup is a little bit more than, obviously there's no cleanup really with spray paint. And the second thing is having to wait that 30 hours between coatings. So this is the head, and we're going to do the top and the inside first. And then we will come back and do the bottom and recoat the sides and the front and the back in the second paint session. But obviously there is a lot to try to get to on the inside of that head. And we want to coat as much of it as we can. I mean, the primer will keep it from rusting at this point, but I really want it painted. So, you know, it takes a lot of work to try to get in there. So like I said, we'll let that sit for 30 hours, and then we're going to come back and we'll flip it over and we'll do the bottom and the sides and the front and the back again. And you can see I put a pretty thick coating on. I don't really care if it's not 3 mil. The thicker the coating, the longer it's going to take to cure. And we're definitely on the edge of the temperature and humidity range for application of this paint because it's winter time. So here you can see that information about drying time and waiting the 30 hours. So here we are 30 hours later. It's about a week later actually, but yeah, you get the idea. So we flipped the base over and we are doing the top side of it. And I'm dragging my hose, but no big deal. So that's the base, and we will set that aside and probably give it an hour or two, and then we're going to remove the masking and then let it cure. And here we are with the head, and I had some buildup of paint right there on that edge, so I'm just sanding that off. Making sure it's smooth. And that's because I was dumping a ton of paint inside that bore on the side there. We'll wipe all that away. Then we can start shooting the inside. And then the outside. So when you flip this head over, you'll see there's a lot of little edges, like the cutout area for the side panels and whatnot, where you may have thought you got the bottom side of them, but you didn't. So it's always good to flip it over and make sure you got complete coverage of it. And the same is true with a lot of the hanging parts. They look pretty good, but when I go back and look at them now, there's some areas on the bottom of some of these parts that just did not get a good coating of paint. So I'm just touching up a couple of those. Basically just flipping them over and then hitting that area that was on the bottom of most of them again. So we're going to go ahead and remove the masking. This is the table, obviously. So it's completely cured because we shot it about a week ago. So messing with it's not really a problem. This is the top side of the table, and that's the boss for the column. And then the table surface itself. And if I have any bleed through here from these areas that I'm pulling the masking off now, then I'll just come back with the 220, which is the last sandpaper grit we used, and touch it up and remove that paint. So this is the Stator, and it's completely cured as well. And just make sure we're not breaking any of those windings when we remove this masking. This is the other end of it. Same thing, just make sure you're careful with the windings. And we're good to go. Then we've got the masking tape that we had placed on the label. So we're just got to peel that off. And then clean up those edges a little. We can set that aside. So this is the base, and this is about an hour after we painted it. So you can see the inside of the board still wet in there because it's so thick. But I'm pulling all three of the masks that are on those bores in there out through the top because I can't flip it over because the top's not cured. And the same with the head. I can't flip it over or put it on its side or anything like that. So I can only pull all of these bores from this end. So if it means that we don't get the bores that are on the top of it, then, you know, we can just pull the masking a week later, you know. But I like pulling the masking tape off within an hour or two of painting something. Any longer than that, and you stand the chance of pulling some of the paint with you when you pull that masking tape off. I don't think it's really an issue with this paint because this paint is an industrial paint that's different than spray paint and how it adheres. But with spray paint, definitely you want to pull the masking off about an hour or two after you've painted something, if you can. If you can't, then you just, you know, you do what you can. But you guys see that that's the finish that all these parts is going to have, is that satin gray. And these are the motor end shields, and I had used rubber plugs in them. So we'll just pull those plugs out. And that's going to wrap up this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please like and subscribe. And in the next video, I think we're going to be installing the panels on all the parts and then get to assembly. I appreciate all the support and all the comments. And as always, I will see you next time.